Did they?
I believe so. Pretty sure we saw Cyclone play
Maybe
XL.
I just misread that entirely. Yeah, I don't know why I was saying that.
It's
It
okay,
was
buddy.
GLB. It was GLB they were up against.
Yeah, don't worry. We got
So
you.
everything I was just saying, once again, wipe that slate clean. Misread that.
We
out
have
of my
been
book.
tilted, and now we will just. I'm just going
Thoroughly
to
tilted.
let me just
Fiora's
upright.
banned.
Let me just upright munch. There we go. I've got him.
You've actually just tilted me if you look at the camera.
Yeah, but you were already tilted to upright position. So if I just tilt you a bit further, you're back to upright.
I've
so it's
tilted a full 360 degrees at this point, so I'm vertical once more. Fiora, first ban here. LeBlanc as well, going to be following.
Fiora actually, I feel, is targeting at Tolkien because you wouldn't classically ban Fiora unless you aren't
Unless
comfortable.
you want to first pick Camille.
Unless you aren't comfortable playing tank champions effectively into Fiora. So if Forks feels like he can't play the Maokai Nautilus Fiora matches very well, you get rid of it. Nocturnal Plex has had the ban of Rek'Sai, has performed admirably. XL not going to make the same mistake. Camille is gone.
Yeah, not at all surprised by that ban whatsoever. That's going to be taken off the board. A little bit surprised by the Rek'Sai ban.
Yeah, so am I.
Of all of the jungle picks to ban away, I don't feel like Rek'Sai is that influential. MF banned as well. That
means
surely spells the Zyra first pick.
No, that spells Zyra. Yeah, that does. But Zyra has to be banned right now for XL. And that's a really clever ban, actually, because Orcs mains in a lot of ways Zyra. So by banning Misfortune, you throw up that Zyra could get first picked by Bulldog here, and they might not give it over to Orcs, basically.
XL have put themselves in a situation where, should Zyra be first picked, then Lee Sin is available.
For
That's
Nocturnal
a
Plex,
fantastic pickup. They've also got basically every AD carry, so they could even go with something like there are
Asha
a lot
Varus,
of
yeah.
picks open
Or
right
Karma,
now.
you can take Karma, which is a perfectly fine matchup, I would say,
Yeah.
into the Zyra.
And
They're not even going to pick Zyra here, they're just going to go straight for the Malzahar.
So Malzahar locked in here. I suppose going for that one so that there's potential to flex it to the
Yeah,
mid lane
for
should
sure.
they need to. But this should definitely be a couple of power picks. I'd love to see like Lee Sin and Zyra here.
I'd like to see... You took the words out of my mouth. I would like to see Lee Sin and Zyra because it's so comfortable for Orcs and Nocturnal Plex. And you've just seen them ban your counter. Like, if you take Zyra and Lee Sin here, you're in a position where you're probably going to have a fairly dominant bot lane. Both AD carries are still on the table. They haven't been banned. Where's the worry? Where's the worry? I almost feel like Zyra is a very solid pickup here. Unless you absolutely want the Varus or the Ashe over what Bulldog will bring to the table, you don't need to pick up your mid laner right now. Okay, there you do. You do want the Ashe over the Varus. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think picking up the Ashe there is like a negative thing necessarily, and also importantly takes it away from the Malzahar lane.
Sure,
So
that's very, very true, actually.
You definitely don't want to go against that combo.
Also, you can quite comfortably make the assumption that you imagine that Malzahar is going to be support, so you might not feel like you have to pick up the Zyra. But look at this Bulldog. They've prioritized their mid laner very early on here. And this is that XL may be under pressure to essentially pick up a counter pick or now before anything gets banned away from them in the next ban phase. So you would imagine that before the next ban phase takes place, XL might now want to pick up their mid laner, which could be something like Syndra, which is still available. I think that's a perfectly viable pick here into the Rise. But they're going to pick the Zyra.
Yeah, so locking in their support there, and actually that could be pretty bad news for Zivis with these next bans coming on through. Nyx could actually find himself in a pretty comfortable matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you probably ban Syndra if you're on the side of Bulldog. You are definitely seeing two mid lane bans here, I think, unless there is a top lane matchup that you're still worried about. But you definitely see two mid lane bans here for Bulldog. You could potentially then see two top lane bans from XL, and then Bulldog are forced to make the choice between
The strongest top or the strongest mid.
or you see jungle bans here because they haven't picked up their jungler, so just eliminate the rest of the strong junglers off the field. And if you actually ban Elise next, what does Jet fall back on? He maybe falls back on Hecarim.
Yeah, I mean, there's the argument of Vi as well, but Vi's like, again, Vi was kind of neck and neck with Kha'Zix like a few weeks ago, but we've had patches since then. At this point, not convinced by Vi. There is going to be the Syndra ban, so it is kind of these mid laners versus junglers. You've got to assume that following the theme, Elise will be the next ban.
Yeah, Elise, like you said, it will be another top-tier jungler here because I think XL know that they don't want to limit their own mid-lane pool. They'll very happily leave open the tanks because they know they can get the best of both worlds in that situation. Ban another top-tier jungler. I would say Elise because Jet is so comfortable on that champion. And then you force him onto something that's definitely down the list in terms of tier value. Bam! Elise goes through. There, we're good at this today. High five, buddy.
Yeah, we did it. But yeah, so final ban for Bulldog. You'd assume mid lane oriented ban. Yeah, Cassiopeia. Possibly Orianna either. Just remove the safe
lane.
lane.
Yeah, Orianna or Cassiopeia, both of which I think are perfectly viable bans.
Corki, potentially? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I would be leaning towards Cassiopeia because of how Ziviz plays Cassiopeia, and it's one of the poorer matchups for Ryze in a lot of ways. So, yeah, I think that's the right ban from Bulldog. But there is, like you said, now you get the first pick of the top laner, which is great, right? You can take whatever tank you like from the top lane, and you know you're not going to lose out a mid lane pick. So there you go. Take the Maokai.
And, I mean, Poppy has been it's the Poppy nerf pre this patch.
She's still strong, but honestly I think Nautilus Maokai are being rising.
They've been picked a lot higher over Poppy at this stage, so now it's going to be interesting to see what Bulldog are actually going to lock in. Trundle, I kind of like the Trundle pick going into a Maokai. You have that subjugate to make that lane pretty okay for yourself.
That's really interesting, the potential Trundle lock in here, because he does fall back onto the Hecarim, we did say. The Trundle was interesting because we haven't seen too much of it. It was picked mainly into Poppy for a lot of the last few months. I still would prefer just to see a see a Nautilus here.
I don't think that Trundle hover was for the top lane.
You think it might be the jungle?
I think that would have been a Trundle jungle. We have seen it a little bit, like fringes of meta, and it does work in a lot of situations. But now, going to be looking towards that top lane. They are going to lock in the Trundle as well, so maybe I was just completely wrong on that one.
That's really interesting because I think it works nicely with the Ryze and the Varus, because you have that synergy between getting the poke off with the piercing arrow and isolating targets for the Ryze to go ham on, but he doesn't really form that frontline devastating tank that you get from something like a Nautilus, and realistically the CC that he provides isn't as strong. And you're right about the Orianna as well. Yeah, I'm interested. I might have preferred to see the Nautilus here. That would have been just me, but maybe they are looking to just outright try and win that lane.
It could well be the case, and I think part of it as well, just meaning that Varus can be more effective in the team fights if you subjugate onto the Maokai. That unbreakable brick wall of a Maokai in those team fights, with subjugate on him, suddenly becomes a lot squishier and able to actually be dealt with. A lot of this game is surely going to be resting on Plex's shoulders. I feel like I say that every game about the junglers. This entire meta seems so heavily dependent on junglers.
It's actually, interestingly enough, very heavily dependent on junglers' movements and very heavily dependent on mid lane's ability to create space on the map by shoving in the opposition mid laner. You know, I talk a lot about the bot lane and its importance, and it is important because you need to have that utility to be able to set things up, but a lot of map presence in the early game is dominated by where the jungler decides to apply pressure and how much pressure the mid laner can apply. Now, this is a matchup between Ryze and Orianna, which Ryze will shove Orianna in early, so Ziviz will have a tough time coping with the wave getting shoved into him early on, which will allow Jett on the Hecarim, though, to try and look for tower dives. Hecarim does not tower dive pre-6 well. So we did talk about what he's going to be forced back onto. The only things that I see Jett play below that top tier is Elise, which is kind of considered top tier now, and Hecarim, which is why I thought he was going to default onto it. Hecarim is a very risky jungler to bring to the fold in a competitive game, because if Nocturnal Plex does what he does best and locks him down, that is a no-gold Hecarim, which becomes a very useless horse.
Yeah, so we actually have a tweet there, AJ Violation, saying all of the teams in the Premiership are looking pretty good right now. I mean, some of them have to look better than others, but it has to be said, someone's got to win at the end of the day. And I mean, you are right. It goes back to the point we were talking about earlier with the power rankings. Like, it's very difficult to place the lineups at this early stage, but we are starting to get a little bit of a glimpse into who maybe is going to be top and who's going to be bottom.
At the end of this week, when we look at the standings, you'll get an indication of potentially where we're going to see teams end up towards the end.
And it's already not looking anywhere near how I was expecting.
No.
Coming into the Premiership last week, I would not have been able to predict that, first of all, MNM would have lost a game at this early stage in the tournament. And I mean, the fact that Cyclone are doing phenomenally, Xenex are now 2-0. Like, there's a lot of results that, not necessarily I didn't expect certain teams to do well or anything like that, but especially the MNM result I wasn't expecting.
No, I completely agree with you. I honestly think that this is a lot more even. I do think that... We'll talk about it towards the end of the day. I do think there are teams that are definitely weaker and probably will end up losing all of them, if not close to all of the games that they have this season. But there are definitely a lot of teams that are going to be mashing together in the midst of this.
There's kind of like a top 5, I would argue.
But
we'll have to see as the games go on. We don't have a fan vote for this one because we kind of swapped games at the last minute, but I can ask Kiernan which game or which team he thinks is going to be able to take this.
Everyone knows I'm an XL fanboy. Sorry, just have to go for XL.
I was about to say, I reckon he's going for XL.
I can't hide it. I like XL as a team, so.
I think I'm going to...
You're a Zivis fanboy. Come on, you know you want.
I am a Zivis fanboy. I'm also a Nyx fanboy. Played a lot with Nyx.
True, I do like Rory.
I
do like Rory.
But just going on the draft alone, I think XL have
if you put
played a bit of a blinder here. They've even
Yeah.
got Ashe Zyra. Like, we didn't even mention the fact they managed to get Ashe Zyra for themselves.
If you put this composition directly into an LCK or an EU LCS game, you would probably say that that team would be happy with the result of their draft. So,
be happy. Like, if this was an LCS, I'd be like, okay, well, XL have already won.
So yeah, I think XL have done pretty well off the back of this. They do have to worry about towards the late game, because you've got Hecarim, who, if you allow him to get to the late game, is a bit of a monster. We know how influential Ryze can be. Ashe is meant to scale over Varus, right? So Varus has multiple power spikes in a game, whereas Ashe is meant to scale towards the end of game. So she's like this medium between a utility and a teamfight-based AD carry. She provides a lot of control to teamfights, but she's meant to scale. Whereas Varus will have the earlier power spikes with the items like Essence Reaver and so on and so forth being picked up. So it depends how Bulldog play this, but I think... I don't know about the Trundle pick. That's my only qualm. You get to a full-on teamfight situation, or you get to a dive scenario. I would always love to have a Nautilus over a Trundle in a lot of respects, but just because of the pure CC he provides. I know I like having the screen behind us. You know, we can just get an indication of the pause going on.
Yeah. So we, as you can see, game currently paused on this one. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Hopefully, we will be able to bring a game to you guys
I'd
tonight.
love to
I realise
see a game of
we've
League
been
of
kind
Legends.
of stalling for some time now. Fingers crossed that won't be any longer. I believe it was Nyx that's disconnected from the game on this.
Well, we didn't talk about the composition, so I guess we've got some time to film with that.
Big Scoundrel, take it away. Talk me through the XL composition.
So, when you pick a Maokai...
I was going to use it as a telestrator.
I was going to use it as a telestrator. Well, bring it back, everybody. Oh, thank you.
Here we go.
So I'm just going to do it like a weatherman, I suppose. So you bring a Maokai to the fold here, and you know he's a good tree, good little tree. What he does is
he's a pretty big tree.
Pretty big tree. What he really does is he's meant to be a team fight orientated. So Maokai very good at forcing tower dives, very good at putting pressure on in sieges, and obviously doing well in skirmishes and team fights. What he's not meant to do is split push forever. And going into a Trundle, that will be a poor matchup in a side lane because Trundle has the subjugate, can always do well against tanks. These two form a nice little combo. I'm sure you've seen it tried and tested. The Twisted Advance into the Command Shockwave into Command Dissonance. It's
ball delivery system.
The ball delivery
as it's
system.
So lovingly called.
We've seen it so much throughout League of Legends history, and with Orianna coming back into meta and Maokai coming back into meta, it's formed a very nice combination between the two. If
it wasn't enough already, you've got Jokerism's Crystalline Arrow as well. But that is enough of our show and tell of the compositions.
I only got through about like two points. But
yeah. Well, the game has started. We can still continue anyway. Let's talk about the Bulldog composition a little bit here. What are the boons that they've got going?
So this is a bit more difficult to analyze, but you have a similar combo in the bot lane where Malzahar can find an ult, combo that into the Chain of Corruption from the Varus. They have a bit more of a scaling composition, and if they do manage to get a dive, the disruption that their dives can put out, especially if you get a good onslaught of shadows from the Hecarim, all that disruption is a paradise for a Ryze and a Varus who can just run in and pick people off left, right, and center. The one problem they do have is that they need to group to make their siege work, because without the Trundle, a lot of their siege is very difficult to make happen. But Trundle will want to split push versus the Maokai, so you have this kind of two different directives that Trundle wants to take. One is vital to the composition, one is vital to his sort of power pick versus the Maokai scenario. So this is a bit more interesting in terms of what Bulldog brings to the table.
Yeah, we already have just trades going back and forth in this bottom lane, but nothing crazy, really, going on. Tolkien, actually. A lot of draw flash forward from Forks. Doesn't quite deal enough damage. That Corrupting Potion saving Tolkien's life. And Tolkien, he's one of these players in the top lane that we often say, you know, he's one of the powerhouse players. He's been there at the top of the scene for quite some time now.
He definitely just got locked into a level 1 trade with the Trundle that he really just should have not happened.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, against Trundle, is the sustain he has in that top lane. Like, he can happily go down to 100 HP each, and within 2 minutes, he'll be full HP again.
Yeah, but also the fact that Maokai's passive gets procced so readily. Nocturnal Plex going super aggressive here.
Blast Cone Life. manages to pull himself to safety. He's going to be thankful for the blast cone spawning in that spot right there.
And there must have been a very late ward put down to spy out Nocturnal Plex's movements. I think it was the right idea to try and put pressure onto the Hecarim. Hecarim will go low. You can see the difference in health bars between Jet and Nocturnal Plex right now. That is because Hecarim has a pretty punishing first clear for himself. It is difficult for him to get the clears that keep him healthy. Whereas Nocturnal Plex on Lee Sin, he is built to have these solid clears. We're going to get another pause.
Yeah. So just in case you guys were feeling a little bit inundated with the sheer amount of League of Legends that was coming to your faces, we are just going to quickly pause and have a brief intermission. I know I was.
I was getting a bit overwhelmed, actually.
Yeah, heart was beating a little bit too quick.
There was been a lot of action in this first 3 minutes and 27, so I believe it's Rory just coming to reconnect into the game again. That's Nyx in the mid lane.
Yeah, and he's reconnected apparently, so hopefully he'll be able to unpause again immediately for you guys. Taking a look at the CS differences.
Oh, baby.
We do have 5 or 6 in multiple lanes, but I would imagine that's really not going to be too significant.
I don't know, mate. I don't know. Don't talk that down right now, buddy. Don't talk that down, because right now you're seeing...
I mean, 5 or 6, that's more than minutes in the game right now.
That's 5 CS going over to Trundle. But more importantly, 5 CS going over to Jet as well. I mean, that top side of the map, it is dominated in terms of CS at this point in time. But Jokerism bringing it back in for XL. The god himself from the League Fest fame. 7 CS advantage over his opponent.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Those are all real numbers, but will it affect the game? Probably not. We'll have to wait and see.
I know Joker has only got 6 CS advantage. I thought he had 19 for a second, but it's 18. I can't even count. I was just looking at Ziviz and then saying it was Jokerism.
Oh, there you go. So, anyway, we're going to go back on the screen. Telestrator, once again, as you can see, everybody starting off with the yellow trinket. So...
lots of yellow, lots of
fare.
Sun coming onto the Rift right now.
Standard jungle items to kick off for both junglers. Mana Crystal here for Ryze, in case you guys at home haven't ever played Ryze or never watched a game with Ryze.
He does always go Mana Crystal.
He scales off of mana.
Now, why does he go Mana Crystal, Munchables?
Because he scales off mana and you can get an early tier and go back
there
into
you
lane.
go. Well, we're back into the game now, ladies and gentlemen. What an interesting little segment that we had for you. I'm sure it has delighted the senses.
And look at that. Nyx is going to be heading back to base so we can go and grab his early tier. Bada bing, bada boom. Picks it up, heads back to lane, even gets a control water.
Why are you not a colour caster, buddy? Because you are just insane in the membrane.
Well, what can I say, mate? I'm a colourful guy. Well, so far, we've had an awful lot of pause in this game. I would argue that for 4 minutes into the game, we've had too much time to analyse.
I don't know, buddy. I think people really wanted to know about the actual numerical CS differences between the laners. That was some really important information. Look at this, though.
Here we go.
Nocturnal Plex.
Could have some numerical differences in kills in the upcoming seconds as Fork's going to get locked down here. And Plex actually might be able to finish this one off. Sonic Wave onto a minion just to keep the gap closed. Flashes forward, gets the slow. He's going to be waiting on cooldowns. Can Tolkien finish it? One jump forward. First blood for Plex. And I'm not even surprised.
I was almost concerned with the Sonic Wave to a minion, but I guess he was doing it.
Here we go. Jet comes in, gets the counter kill. Tolkien's got nowhere to run. What a counter gank from Jet. Grabs himself a double kill. There's a minion wave, but he's going to leave that for his top laner. He's a generous guy. Jet comes in huge.
That's exactly the start that you want on a Hecarim. The extra gold input makes it so easy for you to start to scale up. He has himself gone Mana Crystal. Now, that would allude to certain build paths. You would assume
Triforce.
He might... Yes, Triforce towards the Sheen, which is, you know, like you said, you often go Triforce first on the Hecarim. And actually, I was about to say some other items, but I realised I was talking up my butt, and now it is just going to be Triforce.
That's why I shouted Triforce. I was like, that's definitely Triforce.
Yeah. I was about to say Righteous Glory first Hecarim, and I was like, no, that's just Sheen and Triforce.
I mean, like... I don't really want to argue
I'm sure there are some applications for it, but
yeah, I mean,
but
you
Triforce
get damage off the movement speed, so that first attack will be pretty powerful.
You won't see him finish his jungle item either. He will just go straight Triforce if this is Jet playing that kind of style.
Tolkien, once again getting ganked there, but I mean, that's Twisted Advance in a nutshell right there. Especially as a Hecarim, it's going to be very difficult to punish a Maokai just because every time you try and get your knockback onto him, He just twisted advances to you.
Oh, Nocturnal Plex!
Oh, Fax is in trouble. He's underneath his tower. A lot of tower shots getting soaked up here by the XL members, but Fax is so low. Plex will surely just hit a Sonic Wave here. Oh, or there's just going to be a plant from Orc. Sneaks that one in there.
Fax didn't even bother burning the heal because he knew that categorically he was probably going to die before Malzahar could save him. Plex doing a good job of putting early pressure on despite that counter gank by Jet in the top lane. Plex is the one that's being proactive. He gets a good amount of tower damage down as well. I like that. The more tower damage you can get down early on, the easier it is for you to capitalize and take it later on, especially post 6 with the Ashe.
So we mentioned the CS leads earlier, somewhat in jest. I feel like now they're actually worth mentioning. Take a look at the lead that we've got here for Jokerism. 15 CS up onto his opponent. We've got a near 10 CS lead in the mid lane. 15 in favor of Jet, and then up towards the top lane at 10 CS lead for Forks. So back and forth, the favor is just about even still, but some significant leads actually starting to be built up across the lanes.
Talk numbers to me, buddy. That's just, it's music to my ears.
That's good news. I'm glad to hear that, mate. I'm glad you like numbers as much as I do.
So Maokai going towards Barmy Cinder as you'd expect. It looks like Forks with a double longsword might go down towards the Tiamat build path. You would assume that would be where he's heading. Just because, you know, as a Trundle, you want to get that wave push into the Maokai. That's the one thing that he has over a lot of other top lanes. He can shove very effectively early on, and because he's going into a Maokai who's probably the second worst out of the tank, so he's like middle ground in terms of wave shove early on. Poppy's the worst, Nautilus is the best, Maokai's smack bang in the middle. You can shove Maokai to turret fairly easily.
Archie getting a good little bit of damage down, but all things considered, this bottom lane is going to be fairly passive until we at least hit level 6. But at level 6, we actually could see quite a lot of action in that bottom lane.
Nocturnal Plex coming in here to try and pressure Jet, but won't land the Sonic Wave after the safeguard to the ward. Going to be probably putting a lot of pressure around bot side of the map because of the Infernal Drake, I would imagine here. And also there's good work being done by Jokerism and Orcs in the bot lane, so I think Nocturnal Plex hanging around here, maybe looking to capitalize at some point.
Yeah, I've got to say, pretty big advantage looking towards that Infernal Drake for this side of XL when you've got that BF sword in the hands of Jokerism. When it's only a Caulfield's Warhammer for Fax, you would assume that that is a pretty massive advantage. With that Ashe Zyra level 6 power spike on top of everything else, surely they will be looking to try and force that Drake.
Plex has to be careful here though. He is falling behind in CS, he's falling behind in levels, and he looks like he's going to go and immediately capitalize for this Dragon, but there is a 1 level advantage for Jet. Nyx has gone back to base though, so this could be very risky for Bulldog if they choose to try and fight it. He has got the Realm Warp available, but he's not going to be in range for quite some time here, Munchables.
Jet might just be able to get the snipe though. We'll have to wait and see. Plex tanking up this Drake. He will get fairly low, but they do secure it in the end. I think Bulldog making the correct decision not to commit to them.
That was a really decisive play from XL because of the fact that Nyx had gone back.
And that's exactly what you expect from Plex, right?
Yeah, for sure.
As a player, Plex is not one of these junglers that ever wants to sit back. And like, God forbid we get to a matter where you've got just passive junglers that want to farm, because that is not Plex's zone. Plex wants to be aggressive and he wants to make things happen.
Tolkien getting forced into turret here. I've got to say I've been impressed with Forks' early laning phase against Tolkien, a guy that, you know, we did say in the past has been very, very good in the 1v1 matchups. Even in the tank matchups has always managed to find an edge. Looks like Jet's trying to make some pressure happen here in the bot lane, but Plex is in position. Is still a level down, now has hit level 7 himself. They want probably looking to play around Jokerism's arrow, which isn't up for another 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah, but once that is up, certainly, as you rightly say, will be a big point of contention. Plex getting locked up here, flashes forward, goes straight under the tower. Heal comes out from Jokerism to keep his jungler alive. Archie walks away as well with his life as Jet comes on in. Jokerism in trouble. Plex gets one, but taken down as well. Jokerism, no mana, but he can still get those autos down. It's going to be Tolkien grabbing Jet. Look at this chaotic fight in the early game. Tolkien gets a shield from Zivers, who's finally arrived on the scene. And all things considered, it is a 3-for-2. It goes slightly in favor of XL.
Yeah, but they're going to try and siege. They have the Orianna Command Shockwave available. Forks and Nyx potentially easy targets for a dive. But that wave clear. Goodbye. Nyx just decimates the minion wave, stops XL siege plans right in their tracks, and that is what Ryze can do early on.
I love how Nyx is just there like, yeah, I know it's 3v2, but like, I am Ryze, so you guys could just go now. The minion wave is no more. Zivis getting a little bit of deep vision. Will be punished by one overload there, but not going to be the end of the world for him. He's going to be happy to make that sacrifice of HP for information. And now heading towards that mid lane. Just a couple of trades back and forth, but neither of these mid laners are really the type to go super aggressive in a 1v1.
No, especially Ziv is on a control mage. You would just expect him to try and take the advantages where they come, and the advantages that are coming for Ziv comes in the form of CS. He's opened up a 20 CS gap, so kind of making up for some of the lanes that have been lagging behind for XL. Been impressed with Ziv. He's felt a bit more controlled than we saw from him last week, and I feel like that just speaks volumes to the fact that he's kind of back on a champion that I think he's felt comfortable with for quite a number of years, and that's the Orianna.
Yeah, for sure. And I think any mid laner with their Salt that's been playing a long time, Tolkien flashes in, Forks kicked away, look at the damage, Plex grabs a kill. That's the power of Lee Sin. 420 blaze it for Plex.
Yes. Yeah, I guess. The Barmy Cinder comes in for the blaze, I suppose. Their Munchables doing a bit of damage.
He doesn't have a Barmy Cinder.
No, but the Tolkien does.
He's on 420,
yeah,
420.
Yeah, I know. 420 blaze, it made sense, mate.
It makes sense.
Still
I
nice.
stand by my point.
You stand by it, buddy.
That was some solid analysis.
That
There's
was
nothing you can say
absolutely
about
top
that.
quality bands.
Top lane tower goes down. Jokerism will also go down as Jet stampedes into the lane. I was going to say Fax, but he's in fact a Varus. This should be the bottom lane tier 1 going down, though, in favor of Bulldog.
But XL have already taken first break, which is in that top lane, so it won't be worth as much. You know, that is the play you make as a jungler. You either do it in the top lane or you do it in the bot lane. It looked like, because Forks had burnt his flash, that Nocturnal Plex, given his pathing, had found a very easy route to the top lane to take that tier 1. It looks like he's now going to go on to now.
Oh, good flash by Nyx. Gets himself out. Plex takes a couple of tower shots, but he's happy to do so just to force that pressure. And actually goes back in. Plex manages to get a kill. Takes a lot of tower shots in the meantime, but will be A-okay. I say that. Forks walking on in. Subjugate comes on down. Rapid bite on top of everything else. The dot ticking away is plenty. And Forks grabs himself a third kill of the game.
Yeah, Plex super aggressive in this game, as you can see. Is rewarded for it sometimes, but is also punished on the other hand too. And look at this, the bot lane tier 1 is gone. You would now see this bot lane rotate mid to help defend that tier 1 siege that will eventually come through from XL. But because that bot lane tier 1 still exists, you are going to see Jokerism kind of stay down there and start to put pressure. But now, because of the Rise, you are going to see the classic 1-3-1 that opens from most teams once they've taken that first structure off the map. Rise will take a split push role, has great wave clear, and Forks, who will continue his split push versus Tolkien, and then you'll just have Fax and the and support Archie sat in mid lane for the most part, although they might look like they're just leaving Fax down there by himself, and they might even potentially look to coordinate a gank with the Rise, the Malzahar, and Jet on this Hecarim at some point onto Jokerism. There isn't much to protect him now that tier 1 tower is gone.
Certainly going to be an interesting one to see how they kind of rearrange their players across the map. And that's actually a huge topic in terms of the current meta right now, because a lot of different teams think that different ways of going about that mid-game is very, very different in their mind. So we'll see what these teams are going to really go, well, or which direction they're going to go with that one. Obviously, Infernal Drake in favor of XL so far, and the next Drake will be spawning shortly. Not 100% sure what the next Drake is going to be, but
when you have a Rise, you generally tend to walk, you know, when you're talking about composition of where you put people on the map.
Yeah.
When you have a Rise, you always generally tend to send them into a side lane once you've got that first structure, and then your bot lane always migrates mid. What actually went wrong here was that Archie wasn't there to clear waves, and as Varus backed...
Plex double camping.
Double camping, that's just what he does. When Varus backed, Archie wasn't actually in the mid lane set up to try and defend it, so he actually ended up giving away the mid lane tier 1 for free. What should have happened was if Fax wanted to back, Archie should have been there. Nocturnal Plex.
Plex is in a bit of trouble here. He's got a lot of the team's gold, but it's going into Fax's pocket. Teleport down from Forks. This will surely be an Infernal Drake going the way of Bulldog here, evening things up. It has been a good day for Infernal Drakes here at the Premiership.
It has indeed, Munchables. It's going to be 1-1 in terms of Infernal. Plex caught out by some vision across the wall there. Has now got the Hex Drinker, so we'll have some element of protection versus getting locked down again, but XL not respecting the potential deep vision that's come through because of that tier 1 turret going down in the bot lane. They've actually tried to shore things up with a huge amount of defensive vision, mainly to keep Jokerism safe. They do have a small advantage with teleport being available for Tolkien right now. We don't know how impactful that will be, though, because there has to be some sort of skirmish or fight for Tolkien to look to impact in. Although Jet burns that Ghost, he's going in.
Yeah, he certainly is. Gets the knockback kind of the wrong way, though. Tolkien does have to burn the flash, so Jet's going to be happy with that trade of Summoners. Obviously, his Ghost on a much shorter cooldown than the flash.
And now you are going to see continuously Archie and Fax just sat there in that mid lane. Archie will get Sonic waved. Looks like Plex went for it.
Oh, nice counter flash comes on through Plex. Very low. Malefic Vision's not going to be enough to finish him there, though. We'll have to back away. So I think I'd take... I mean, is that a good trade of flashes? Malzahar for Lee Sin? What do you reckon? Pretty even?
Malzahar does have that potential to flash engage, but I do feel like the Lee Sin flash kick is super impactful. XL, they don't seem to be able to deal with the Rise very easily at this point in time. So he is just shoving those side waves in. I don't think anyone's going to get the opportunity to siege onto that tier 1 bot lane anytime soon. Looks like Ashe may be looking to force an engage onto the Trundle or Jet on this Hecarim.
Yeah, Jokerism starting that one off. Forks will walk away. The teleport is going to be channeled. Forks does get stunned up by the arrow there. Plex looking to get onto Forks. Immediately flashes. Orcs will be the one to be locked up. Support taking a lot of damage. Heal comes on through. There's the charge into the backline. Jets having none of it. Tramples them on down. Shockwave from Zivis onto Forks, but it's 2 versus 2. Forks still surviving. Look at that lifesteal. The Trundle that can have Tolkien will finish him off in the end. Fax has no mana, and this has gone pretty well for XL, all things considered. Fax, will he actually go down here? The sapling on top of everything else, a little bit more damage will be enough. Arcane Smash grabs Tolkien a kill. 4 kills to 2, all things considered.
Yeah, that is why people don't take tank shredders, because tanks can just do that to you. That was a Maokai with 2.5 items, completely decimating Fax, who admittedly has only got the Essence Reaver and didn't really have much mana to work with, but still, Maokai is a monster at this point in time. Nyx, without teleport, was too far away to actually impact that fight. Had Nyx come through and found a way to Realm Warp, actually, I think that could have been going in favor of Bulldog, because like you said, there was an overextension from XL, and Forks just was almost seemingly unkillable in that skirmish. But again, he was in that side lane, didn't get any structures for his split push, and now he goes to start a split push again. This is just what Rise does, ladies and gentlemen. This is kind of what Rise has evolved to be in the current meta. He just enters a split push role, and sometimes when he feels like it, teleports in with Realm Warp.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you see from all champions that have a global ultimate like Realm Warp, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That is the role that they kind of evolve into being, because, you know, naturally they're not going to be the best duelists. They're not going to be the best fighters necessarily, because they do have one less ability than their opponents. It's kind of the way that you would expect it to evolve.
Vision clearance coming down for Bulldog here. Jet's a monster right now. I think this is something that we do have to keep an eye on. Jet looks very, very good on this Hecarim. He is doing insane damage to that backline. Even through Exhaust, managed to pick up the kill onto Orcs there. Triforce completed pre-20 minutes is always good for a Hecarim too. So, yeah, definitely keep your eye. I don't think Ashe is going to be particularly safe in team fights. And again, you're going to be leaving it up to Zivis to do the majority of the damage, which I think will be very difficult to make happen, because it is an Orianna. She has a bit of burst, but she needs long, sort of 30 seconds, 45-second long team fights to get continuous rotations off. And it looks like she's even going to get locked into a split push role, which just is not really what Orianna is suited for.
No, and isn't running that teleport either. So in a situation where it's him and Nyx trying to get to a fight, Nyx definitely having an advantage, although Orianna will do wonders when there's a Realm Warp there, forcing people into a specific location. That's perfect for Orianna.
And actually, the 1-3-1 suits Bulldog really well against the XL composition, because you can only really have one lane that feels comfortable answering, which is the Maokai, because he's got the teleport. If you lock Zivis into a side lane, you are left with a large chunk of your teamfight composition just stuck, where he can't have an impact. He will struggle to 1v1 easily. XL need to force fights to sort of stop this 1-3-1 from happening. Bulldog can do this all day long. They can scale up really nicely, and XL will get caught off really hard if they let this happen continuously. So You know, XL need to start thinking about using this Ashe ultimate, using the Nocturnal Plex engage with the Dragon's Rage kick, if they want to start really accelerating ahead in this game. If they get continuously locked into split pushing scenarios, they are going to lose eventually.
But one thing to bear in mind, this is the UK scene, and not all may be what it seems.
It's never as it seems, is it?
Things could definitely go awry regardless of the playstyle. We've seen plenty of Teamfight Fioras actually win out games in the end. But Dragon, going to be spawning again shortly. It's yet another Infernal Drake, so
goodness gracious.
Another huge damage boost to whoever wins this fight, and honestly, this fight could go either way when you look at the composition.
Oh, Rise coming in.
Yeah, Realm Warp comes on through. Jet's going to be there as well. Tolkien immediately locks up Nyx, kicks him straight back into Fax as well. Tolkien 1v2, but Plex has gone down to Archie in the end. Tolkien jumping on forwards, but he's kind of isolated himself more than anyone else. He will get chunked on out. Forks zones the rest of the team away, and there you have it. BDG walk away with a singular pick. Shockwave, though, turns things around. Ziviz, he's not over with this fight just yet. Chasing on through now as Forks trying to walk away. Pillar of Filth won't be there. And that's another kill for Ziviz. Nyx goes down. Infernal Drake surely going the way of XL now.
Yeah, but they don't have their jungler, and Bulldog do, so they will have to be thoroughly careful about how they play this. Jet does not have his gap closing ability of Onslaught of Shadows. This could be too risky for XL. I think they think it's too risky as well. They're going to go take the objective they know they can secure, which is that bot lane tier 1.
Yeah, teleport won't be available for Forks, but it will be for Tolkien. So if a couple of members from XL do want to head back to base, potentially viable. But they are going to start off this Infernal Drake. There's a ward there for Bulldog. They know that this is happening. Jet is on his way. Won't have the ultimate, though, and it will be secured by Plex in the end. So XL managed to grab that. Look at the damage coming out from Fax with a triple shot there. But all things going the way of XL in that scenario. Archie just blocks the arrow completely with his spell shield there.
Yeah, that's what Malzahar's pretty good into Ashe in that scenario. If you're not able to proc his spell shield, he will just eat arrows for days, say, thank you very much, not going to get CC'd as I'm spell immune. And actually, XL will probably take that win and back off now. They pick up a turret and a dragon here. But they need more of that. They need to force more fights because they can't dilly-dally around. What Bulldog probably do here is reset, gain Baron vision, and start that 1-3-1 process all over again. XL need to be the ones to say, okay, if they are split in the mid lane, no teleport on Forks, Nyx too far away to use his Realm Warp, let's use my Ashe Arrow, let's find an engage, let's run in with the Maokai. You know, there's multiple options we can employ. So XL also have the opportunity to just continuously apply pressure on this Baron, and that looks like, well, that's what they're going to do. They're even going to get the River Scuttler too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the weight is on Jet's shoulders in this game now with how his game started, and with, you know, he's got a Triforce now, he's got that Cinder Hulk as well. He can be a huge factor in these fights. If he can get a great Onslaught of Shadows, if he can stack up his Rampage early, look at the damage coming out onto Archie. Goodness. Ziviz picks up yet another kill, and Ziviz, he got his death cap now, and just like over the last, what, 5 minutes of the game, he's gone from like 0-0-1 to 4-1-2. That is a huge pickup of gold.
We talked about Ziviz, and Ziviz was so upset last week when he didn't have a good performance. He was so hard on himself, and look at him now. I mean, he's 4-1-2. He looks like he's having a great game at this point in time. They're going to go for Baron here, just two of them starting it off with Ashe and Zyra trying to zone, but there are wards available for Bulldog. This is going to be a big risk for XL. Jet knows things are taking place here. Teleport is coming through.
Plex actually very low, though. This is kind of dangerous. Jet still here. He's going to get the Onslaught of Shadows down. Plex might just fall to the Baron. If that happens, it goes the way of BDG. Who's going to get the smite? It is going to be Jet. Grabs himself a kill to boot. XL, though, they've got a couple of kills of their own. Nyx is going to get jumped on by Tolkien. Should be able to finish off the Orianna in this situation. Forks, though, might just be able to fell the tree. It's 3 for 2 all in all. Absolute chaos across the map. Archie can't finish off those kills. It's just the top and support remaining for Bulldog, but they got the Baron. That's the important thing.
It was such a big 50-50 for XL to employ, and I really get tense when we see teams do this. They don't respect the potential of a Smite Steal. XL have been caught out by this numerous times, and all credit to BDG, especially Jet in such a high-pressure situation, getting into the Baron pit, getting the steal. They did come off badly from it, but you have a Baron on a key member. Your key member is Trundle. He's got teleport coming up very soon. He's going to split push like a monster. You can now very effectively employ a 1-4 or a 1-3-1 and actually apply pressure across multiple lanes. And look at the goal difference. Completely, if not, well, not completely, but very close to being equalized here for Bulldog. What a comeback play from these guys.
Yeah, and certainly while that Baron buff is up, the goal difference is essentially equalized because of the extra boons that you get from having Baron on your side, the pressure that those minions will offer. As you rightly say, Forks can take that to a side lane, and realistically, having it on Archie is pretty nice as well, because he's going to be wherever the siege is. Your support is always going to be around the rest of your team where the majority of players are going to be at.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that front. And the thing is, now XL are going to be under pressure because they know that they can't contend with this split push. They're going to feel like they need to sort of start fights, but with Forks pushing so heavily with the Baron buff in the side lane, Tolkien not having teleport, all of the impetus for fights is lying with BDG. XL are now locked into lockdown mode for 5 minutes while they wait for or 4 minutes to wait for the Baron buff to fall off. And that's more and more time for BDG to scale up. Admittedly, Fax is only at 1.5 items, so he's kind of really behind on terms of power spikes, although he has picked up a QSS, so he's not going to get caught out easily by those Ash arrows.
Yeah, that QSS could be huge in these upcoming fights, but we've got one on either side of the scoreboard right now. Vox could be in trouble, but actually Plex just getting engaged on by Jet, who's getting incredibly tanky in this situation and can comfortably trade against Plex at this point. Arrow lands onto Forks, Plex going onto Jet once again as Forks gets kicked off back. Shockwave, everything being used. All 5 XL members go to the top lane to secure that kill, but in the meantime, BDG are going to be happy to get damage down onto this tower, should be able to finish this one off and walk away. Yeah,
that kind of was not worth for XL because they've now just given up that big important turret of the tier 1 in the mid lane. Dragon is now coming up though. XL may look to force a fight around it. I don't know which dragon it's going to be, but if it's another Infernal, I will end up laughing. No, it's Ocean. It looks like it's going to be an Ocean, so maybe not as hot property as the rest of the dragons that we have seen today. But XL, after losing that Baron, will be feeling very sore about trying to fight for neutral objectives without having a fairly large advantage.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting one as the next Baron is going to be... next Dragon will be up in just 30 seconds' time. Certainly a point of contention, especially for Bulldog, who are 1 Dragon down, let's remember. And we still have... Assuming that this gets taken instantly, we still have time for 1 more Dragon, I think, before the Elder Dragon
There's a lot of pressure on Ziv's shoulder, by the way, because he is got a huge level, sort of item spike advantage over his opposition. He is the main source of damage in the team fights at this point in time, and if he messes up, XL's team fight messes up. So it's a really, really tough situation for Zivis to find himself in. He needs to be the one hitting big shockwaves in these team fights. Plex had a great early game, is now starting to struggle in terms of what he's attempting to achieve in team fights. You can see he's kind of dying more often than not. He has found a couple of good kicks here and there, but realistically everything kind of now lying on Zivis.
I like the kind of retreat there from Bulldog. They know that they're slightly behind. They know that these team fights haven't been going perfectly for them. And they say, do you know what? It's only an Ocean Drake. Let's just give that over to XL. We don't care that much about the regen that an Ocean Drake's going to bring to the table. Let's just allow this one to slide so that we can continue to scale up. We've got this Rise. We've got a Varus as well, who kind of need to wait for a couple more item spikes to come on through. But Rise, or Nyx I should say, is actually starting to get into a pretty good spot when you look at his items. He's got that Void Staff, Rod of Ages, and as well as that Seraph's Embrace now fully stacked. When we get into some of these team fights, assuming that Zivis doesn't get an exceptional shockwave, I would argue Nyx should have a stronger impact.
Yeah, Nyx is getting to the late game Rise that everybody knows, loves, hates, whatever you feel. Yeah, whatever you feel about that Rise. This is XL giving a lot of time and space to a team that they shouldn't have given a lot of time and space to. And I always say this with Ashe, people are far too reluctant to just outright try and force engages with her ultimate. I feel like they're held onto for the perfect moment. Whereas, you should just be firing it whenever you see someone out of position in front of you, whatever. Just fire that ultimate, see if you can make something happen from the back of it. Because now XL are, they're 30 minutes into the game. You're going up against a team which, oh, well, we might see a
Jet
engage.
will get exhausted there. Stranglethorns goes down onto just one member, and Jet will walk away. Oh, Blasko pulls him away. He's not going to get away with his life, though. Or is he? Actually, Plex might go down. Jokerism finishes off the Horsey. Tolkien jumps onto the backline. Shockwave onto 2. Double kill for Ziviz. And look at this fight for XL. It is going to be traded slightly as Nyx gets 1 kill, but he's got a Tolkien on his face. There's nothing he can do. And Nyx will drop. Jokerism gets that one. Forks walks away with his life, but that's about all he walks away with. And in fact, won't even get that. Oh, will he? Tolkien's still going for this one. Does finally get the ace. What a fight for XL. 5 for 1.
How long have they got here? Baron up in just over 30 seconds, 45 seconds on the clock. Not enough time for them to go and take Baron straight afterwards. Let's take a look at this here. Jet thinks he's caught Orxal, but this is what Zyra is so good at, disengaging and basically putting things back on their head.
Look at that Twisted Advance.
Yeah, Twisted Advance and Blasko were perfect. Jet then walked straight into Jokerism. Look at Ziviz here. This Shockwave, double kill straight away. But I want to point out something interesting that you mentioned. Ryze blew Ziviz up right after that. Nyx absolutely destroyed him, so they do need to keep an eye on this Ryze right now.
And this goes back to something we were saying in Champion Select. When you've got the Maokai with an Orianna, the Twisted Advance in, along with Command Protect into that Shockwave, it will obliterate a team, and that's exactly what we just witnessed. If it wasn't for that Shockwave, that fight easily could have gone the way of Bulldog.
Let's also note Jokerism's item spikes. He's gone for a Mortal Reminder, very good against the Hecarim, very good against the Trundle, both of which are going to be key targets for the Ashe to try and kite against. And actually Jokerism's scaling up now. The sustained damage that we know an Ashe can provide is starting to become more and more applicable to these team fights. Jokerism, that fight, I think, was the unsung hero in some respects, doing major amounts of sustained damage from the backline and essentially was just untouched to do so. Forks does not have teleport. They know he doesn't have teleport, so XL are going straight for a start on Baron.
Yeah, so XL once again with superior positioning when it comes to these neutral objectives, and there's nothing Jet can do about this one. Gets taken away in the end, Jokerism grabbing that one.
That's an interesting move from Bulldog, really interesting move. They almost just gave it up because of the fact that Forks was in the bot lane.
Yeah, I think they were maybe worried that the triple minion wave was just going to take that tower, but I would argue that 5 for Baron's probably worth more. I don't know whether that actually saw Bulldog there.
The ward did, though, right? The ward did, right? So the ward saw them there, and that's why XM were pinging. I don't know whether they could have potentially set up a fun, like, Death Brush, and Tolkien just jumps in with the Shockwave, but they are now going to use this Baron and start to siege. XL kind of solidified a better position for themselves. I'm still worried about Nyx. He might be 1 and 4, but he's now got a needlessly large rod on top of 3 completed items. That is going to rise. That'll be a rise. Should he get a flank, that will decimate his opposition. And actually, you can see Ziviz is itemized directly into it. Ziviz has said, I do not want that to happen to me again. I'm going to go Spectre's Cow and Negatron Cloak on the back of it.
Yeah, instantly into a Banshees as well. He's not having any of it. He doesn't want Nyx to be able to affect those spikes anywhere near as much as he has been able to. That mid lane inhibitor going down, it is going to be a real pain now for Bulldog in this series. As XL, they're starting to really hammer home quite how far ahead they are. 7,000 gold lead for them. 2 towers up, 2 dragons up, and now with Baron in their grasp as well. Bulldog are going to have a hard time in these next few minutes just surviving this Baron buff.
Fax has really been under the thumb this game as well. He's miles behind Jokerism at this point in time. And you know, Varus is good because he spikes, right? You want to get Varus spiking at the right times. Early Essence Reaver, you pick up the Runaan's Hurricane. You want to get Varus applying pressure in the early to mid game because that's what Varus is good at. He's very good at utilizing those power spikes with the damage you can do with Piercing Arrow after Essence Reaver, so on and so forth. But he's been very delayed in all of these build paths, which has resulted in him having less of an impact. And as the game progresses, Ashe is going to be more valuable in teamfights because she functions in a teamfight better than Varus does.
We'll see if that's going to be the case. Certainly, XL on the front foot right now, but they don't have that long left of the Baron buff, so maybe BDG can just hold on here, but there's a huge wave of supers pushing up the mid lane right now. This has to be cleared very quickly. Jokerism not really able to get shots on the turrets each wave. That's one of the disadvantages of Ashe. Your range isn't incredible. It's not very safe to just walk forward and get a couple of hits each wave.
Yeah, I mean, but she's got one of the longer ranges of AD carries, right? She's kind of in between.
I think it's because she's so like immobile.
Yeah, yeah. She's very vulnerable as a target. So it's not like you've got a Caitlyn who can maybe caliber net out. Oh, a long-range arrow.
Here we go. Plex is going to go in onto RG. Orcs gets the kill before he gets in at all. Fear comes down, though. Plex is still tanking tower. He will drop in the end, but Nyx does as well. Jet grabbing that kill in the end as Fax. He's just going to get chased to the ends of the earth by Tolkien. Forks, he's all alone, and it's another double coming through for Ziviz. We said how he didn't have a strong performance last week. He has come back in to prove that he is just the same Swedish powerhouse he was last season, or the season before, or however long ago it was that Ziviz was playing. Jet goes in to try and save the day, but there's nothing he can do. He goes down, Ace comes through, Ziviz padding his scoreboard, and that is going to be XL taking the first game in the series against Bulldog.
And actually, everybody from XL played incredibly well. I think a lot of the early game was facilitated by Nocturnal Plex. He did a lot of aggressive moves. You know, we talk about Lee Sin putting out early pressure. Nocturnal Plex is one of those players that will do that in endless bounds. Yeah. But honestly, I would even argue that Tolkien had an excellent game that game. I mean, he was a monster on that Maokai. 7-1-13.
Yeah.
20-1 KDA. That's an insane scoreline if I've ever seen one myself. Everybody from XL played really well that game, though. I actually think they struggled, and I've got to give credit to Bulldog. The Bulldog that I saw last December in the UK Masters was nothing compared to the level of what's the word I'm looking for? Competence that I'm seeing from the Bulldog that were in the ESL Premiership. They've definitely leveled up, another step here against a lot of the top-tier opposition in the UK.
And let's bear in mind, XL, these are one of the teams that we've been heralding as kind of a seasonal favourite, one of the teams that should be doing very well in this Premiership. Bulldog's certainly giving them a run for their money. I mean, you can see in these clips how close this game was, but I definitely feel like when it came to the team fights, XL were ahead. Just straight up, like, when it came to the 5v5s, I mean, that's a perfect example.